Yeah, I swear not every video is gonna be me gushing about the things I like, but, and I haven't watched this yet, we will talk about Warframe. One of my crown jewels of games, the type of game that I'll always end up going back to because it's a good game. And I appreciate games willing to be, to take risks, to be weird and to be out there and actually have good content. I think this is something that definitely can be done, but it's a matter of are companies willing to take the risk. And what we see is no, they're not willing to take the risk. They're willing to buy up IPs. They're willing to, make remakes and remasters and prequels and sequels, right? But then you look across the pond and you see anime actually being good. Like people, anime always seems to do something new, right? And yeah, you can have a genre of isekai, but each isekai anime that comes out seem to be completely different, like completely different world, completely different characters, completely different character types, and you can argue, say, Jobless Reincarnation and Re Zero are they're both technically isekais, but they're so fundamentally different that people are willing to just treat them like they're two completely different things. So let's get this going.
Warframe is a wake up call. Look, the phrases free to play and live service, whether by themselves or in combination with one another, don't fill players with a lot of confidence. And they shouldn't, because they become synonymous with games and studios that are under delivering on a product and service while asking for the absolute most from their audience. More time, more engagement, more money, extracting as much as they possibly can while putting in the least amount of effort. Warframe is the most well-known yet underdiscussed and underappreciated games in all of gaming. It's often referred to as the internet's best-kept secret, and I'm tired of it being a secret.
Yeah, it is that way. I mean, how old is Warframe? It's like 12, 13, 14 years old, right? And, they did start out as just a couple dudes in their mom's basement. Like, Warframe today, in current day, is almost a completely different fucking game than it was when it first came out. And even when before it came Warframe, it was Dark Sector, which was effectively Call of Duty, but you can see, the same character models being used, the same type of weapons being used in Dark Sector. But yeah, most people look at live services and be like, ew, because again, the way most multi-billion dollar companies treat live service games is like, oh, they want to just shove out something as cheaply as possible, and then be like, oh yeah, we'll give you the rest, the rest of your money, the rest of your money's worth later, or you can pay us, more, and we'll give it out. And again, most people don't really like this. I mean, people have been desensitized to it, but now gamers are becoming conscientious purchasers. Why can't I speak? Look, it's early in the fucking morning. They're becoming conscientious about their purchases, right? And because of this, they're being like, okay, so why would I spend $70 on, Ubisoft bullshit, Ubisoft trash, if I can't just, spend money or get a game like the First Descendant and a game like Warframe for free, with all their flaws, but end up getting a better product overall. Like, again, why would I spend money on Assassin's Creed Shadow, which again they've spent time, money, and effort, and hire consultants. They hire their best friends in the positions of power, and they want to morally lecture to you, the fucking consumer, the grown ass adult, how you're bad. You need to adopt an ideology. Like most people don't like that. Even if you have the best ideology on the planet, even if your ideology will literally cure cancer because it's Jesus fucking Christ, people don't like you lecturing and moralizing to other people. So, and that's kind of where we're at in gaming. And, you know, most people understand, but sometimes you just gotta put what's happening into words every so often, just for you to understand, like, wow, we really did just get to this point.
For all intents and purposes, Warframe is the blueprint by which many of these free-to-play games and live service games should be following, but they're not. It's a game that is tirelessly supported by its developer and by its community in a way that I don't even think any other game can even replicate. And once you guys hear about some of this stuff, it's going to blow your mind. Free-to-play and live service is supposed to be a way for developers to be able to deliver a smaller product and grow it over time. Be able to deliver a valuable service, a valuable product, and grow it while the community supports it. And that's the kind of game that Warframe is. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Luckily, today's sponsor is actually the game that inspired Warframe.
I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be a quadruple A game. It's what that I can't even remember the CEO anymore. That was it an ex Blizzard. No, I think it was the one for that Skull and Bones trash from Ubisoft. But yeah, it's what they consider a quadruple A game. It's a game that I guess costs more money over time, but at least in the case of Warframe, it actually brings in, it justifies your purchase, right? It actually adds value on. Now, again, Warframe has its flaws, but I think if you legitimately want a game to get into and you're willing to put in the time and effort and maybe even tip them every once in a while, you get your money's worth.
I've played World of Tanks multiple times over the years with my friends, and this is an easy suggestion to make. World of Tanks is one of the longest running free-to-play games on the market and has been actively supported for over a decade now, with over 100 million registered users, hundreds of tanks and tons of customization, high-fidelity graphics, incredible sound design, and hundreds of hours of gameplay. The extensive arsenal includes tank destroyers, artillery, light, medium, and heavy tanks, providing you with a wide range of options for different combat strategies. It's a free-to-play game that brings you massive battles with a huge variety of tanks. Whether you're charging in guns blazing or sneaking up on enemies, there's always a new way to play. And here's the best part. New players will get an amazing deal using the invite code COMBAT and the link in the description below. You'll get a Cromwell B Tier 6 British premium tank, 250,000 credits, and 7 days of premium access. Plus, you'll get to try out 3 other Tier 6 tanks for 10 battles each. Just use the link in the description below to get started. So what is Warframe? It's a looter shooter, live service MMO with a third-person perspective. You play as a Warframe, you're dashing through levels, taking down enemies, farming up materials, currency, and other items so that you can continue to build more weapons and more Warframes to use. Warframes vary in their looks and abilities. Some of them play like a ninja, others like a battering ram or even a wizard. There's even a frame that lets you create your own music so that you can buff other players. You have pets.
Fucking Octavia, she's the one that can kill with dubstep, she's one of my favorite. That's all I needed to say. I have nothing else to add to this.
Ships, clans, PvP, personal housing, boss fights, a roguelike, a fighting game, open worlds, and more. It has consistently stayed in the top 20 of the most played games on Steam for over a decade now, and in doing that, there is something inherently special here. If we look at the game's player base on Steam, while it's not burning the world down with insane peaks, it's maintained its player base consistently since 2013, and it's only.
And most of these upticks were added content, so like primes, maybe they added new weapons, maybe they added, more story stuff. Like, that's what these upticks have been. Then, people play through them, then they sort of drop off. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's remained relatively consistent, right? And most games don't really get the consistency that, again, like, games like Minecraft or like GTA get these types of consistent player base, but just like it's because they have huge communities attached to them. And Warframe has the same thing. Like, there's an entire community that just cares about fashion framing, right? So making your Warframe look as fucking hot and as cool as possible. Like, there's a community for that. You know, most are just there to help. Even the, like, there's even a community to help newer players grind. Right? There's a community for that. Right? It's like, if you get into the game, there's really nothing you can't really do. There's people like me who literally farms everything in the fucking game the minute it comes out. Like when Savagoth Prime comes out on the 21st, I'm gonna grind his ass out. You know? And that's things like that is what keeps the longevity of games and keep people playing. And being a live service, if you have people playing, more people are going to keep playing because it's not dead, right? And then, you know, you have it when Steel Path came out, that brought a whole nother group of people who, you know, they have Warframes that are built for in game and they want to flaunt them and use them for Steel Path. And that's what Warframe has. Like, it has a decent, feasible end game outside of just, you know, playing the game. And that's the thing that, say, the First Descendant lacks. And that's the thing that but then again, First Descendant just came out. But, and that's what Warframe has. Like, you can go, and even that, you can go through the whole game and not really care about any of that. Just play with your friends, play, you know, and hang out, build up clans, you know, play with your clan mates. Like, again, at the end of the day, it's a social game more than it is a grinding game. The grinding is just implemented into the game, you know, because that's the game.
Only continued to grow. So how has Warframe maintained that success? Why is nobody talking about it? And unlike many other live service games, why aren't we hearing people complaining about it or how it mistreats its players? Well, to answer that, we need to understand the game's history and that of its creators. Now, you may recognize the name Digital Extremes. Renowned for their early work on Unreal Tournament in partnership with Epic Games, they played a pivotal role in shaping the landscape of multiplayer first-person shooters. They were among the first to popularize key features like online multiplayer, power weapons, team deathmatch, and capture the flag, laying the ground for many of the multiplayer games that we play today. After parting ways with Epic Games, as Epic went on to make Gears of War with Xbox Studios, they decided to pitch their own game idea, and they tried to do it for over a decade. That game was called Dark Sector.
Oh my god, just looking at it now. Like, you can see some of the things that are in Dark Sector is in Warframe. Like, the way the weapons look and everything, and, you know, the way, you know, certain level designs are. Like, just looking back, it's like, wow. It just hits you with the nostalgia.
Find a publisher for this dark sci-fi MMO concept that they had, and ultimately Digital Extremes was forced into doing work for hire just to be able to keep the company afloat. The decision to take on work for hire projects, while necessary for financial stability, came with its own difficulties. The studio faced a cycle of hiring employees for specific projects and then laying them off once that project concluded. This practice is commonplace for work-for-hire studios. However, it disrupted the lives of their employees and their families, a situation that the studio founder has regretted since then.
Yeah,
He believed that publishers often lack
it's
a
kind
clear...
it's effectively like contract work, right? You're hired to do a specific thing, then once the thing's over, they lay you off. Like, it's effectively just contract work, and, you know, that effectively, you know, can become a big blunder to the people that's working under you, because most people in a job would rather have the stability of a job. You know, like, maybe if you're hiring, like, interns, it's not that big of a deal, but, I mean, we're not talking, like, you know, some hoity-toity programming job. Like, we're talking about actual legitimate hours and crunch of work. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Your vision, and that Digital Extremes would have been better off just focusing on smaller, self-controlled projects, as seen with independent studios that tend to produce higher quality work when they're given full creative control. Despite the continuous efforts to pitch Dark Sector to publishers, the studio continued to face rejection, primarily due to a lack of interest when it came to sci-fi games on the side of publishers, a sentiment that somehow never even changed even with the success of Halo. In a desperate move, Digital Extremes caved to a publisher's demands, shifting Dark Sector from a sci-fi MMO to a game that emulated the success of Resident Evil 4 at the time. This change involved transforming the protagonist from a space ninja to a CIA operative named Hayden Tenno, which strayed very far from the original concept.
Yeah.
The new version of Dark Sector struggled to be able to find an audience, however, it eventually did and gained respectable reviews as well. After the release of Dark Sector, the industry started to trend away from AA releases to AAA games, and this made for more issues at Digital Extremes. The studio, which had previously worked on BioShock's multiplayer and The Darkness 2, found itself struggling to find any contracts as they began to dry up and publishers wanted to start making games in-house. Observing the success of free-to-play games like World of Tanks in 2010, Digital Extremes saw an opportunity in an emerging market. They didn't see free-to-play as a way to be able to milk players. They recognized and saw the potential to be able to create something smaller and grow the game over time rather than trying to pursue a traditional release. Facing imminent financial...
Yeah, see, and that's the way, you know, most successful projects go. It's like, okay, let's build some small, contained, let's have our, you know, player base, like, at least, you know, build up the player base. Then over time, we will build, instead of, you know, buying up IPs, demanding full retail price, full $70, and for a $30 game, and maybe we'll add to the game, depending on how it goes. But if it isn't successful because, you know, people don't like that, well, I guess that $70 or that $100 and something goes into the trash can. I mean, most companies hold IPs like Prisoner. You know, it's like, oh, well, if you don't want any more to come from this, well, then it's like, if you don't want to buy this game or you don't want to buy in this IP, well, I guess nothing more will come from it. But what most people do is they're like, okay, well, I guess I'll just move on to another IP. And Warframe, despite being that, you know, silent banger, I mean, there are reasons people don't play. Again, reasons that I'm told why people don't play Warframe. And it's mainly due, well, information overload. Like, once you start the game, you're inundated with, like, a fuck ton of shit. Like, it shoves a lot down your throat when it really shouldn't, because you find out that, oh, half of that I don't actually need to care about, right? What I need to care about is doing the star chart and doing the missions. And then within doing the star chart, which is like 300-400 goofy missions, which is a chore in and of itself, because you'll want to get to the end game, but I mean, it's delayed gratification, but it's so much tedium that it's like, is it really gratifying to do the missions as opposed to just going past them? And that's really what the problem with Warframe is. It throws a lot at you when you start the game, and others say it's too fast. I don't know, I like the fast-paced combat. Like, when I'm playing the First Ascendant, I feel constrained. Like, I feel like there's a lot I can do, but I can't because I'm constrained by the control. But then when I play, you know, Warframe, it's like, oh, I've been released upon the enemy. Yeah. And yeah, see, the grenade, like, all these things, right, are in the game.
Collapse with only 12 months of funds remaining, Digital Extremes decided to pursue a long-held vision for what used to be Dark Sector, and then was now codenamed Lotus. Within 2 months, they developed a working demo featuring spaceship raids and procedurally generated loot and layouts with an emphasis on co-op and PvE gameplay, recognizing there was a gap in the market. They approached free-to-play publishers asking for support, but they were getting rejected yet again. Undeterred, Digital Extremes decided to self-fund the project with only 9 months of funds remaining, wanting to give it their all rather than simply just walk away. The development of the alpha version of the game saw significant involvement from Rebecca Ford, an intern who led the creation of their community team. This team was crucial in gathering and responding to player feedback, a strategy that helped shape the game's development and ultimately its success. Embrace.
Yeah, and she was like one of the old guard. Like you see Rebecca Ford even on TennoCon, and people respect her for it. You know, she has great respect over the Warframe community because she was part of the old guard. You know, and people, in fact, it's why people even watch TennoCon, is because it's like from where Warframe became, you know, from where it came from to what it became now. It's nostalgia, but it's also, you know, hey, this community, this game I'm part of, you know, I just want to see it flourish and just live in the cringe that is Warframe, and I mean the cringe in a good way.
Seeing the success of Kickstarter campaigns that were going on at the time, Digital Extremes introduced supporter packs to raise additional funds. This approach, while initially slow, proved ultimately effective and demonstrated that there was an audience for their game. Thus, Warframe was born, a game over a decade in the making, who had faith in itself. Scorned by an industry, nobody else wanted to make it except for them. It released into beta on Steam in 2013 to over 20,000 players and has only continued to grow since. Over the years, I've come to realize that the vast majority of the studios that we grew up loving, the games that we grew up loving, the biggest studios and publishers that are out there, all came from very similar humble beginnings. But the vast majority of them forgot about it.
Yeah, like BioWare, you know, like Bethesda, EA. Oh, I don't know if anyone really liked EA, but yeah, like Ubisoft, like many companies, AAA companies that are now just shoveling out schlock because they have the IPs and effectively holding them hostage. Like they came out, they were just a couple of dudes in their mom's basement that just wanted to make a game, and most people forget that, or at least they forget that, right? Because now they just want to push and peddle ideology instead of pushing and peddling a good fucking product. And again, it's why people are moving on. It's why people are like, well, I see no reason to continue supporting this, right? And it's why most people even want the companies to fail. Like, this is why people want these companies to fail, is because they forgot, somewhere along the way, they forgot, you know, where they come from. They believe they can do better. And again, as most people at these companies, they weren't there at the humble beginnings, right? You know, they just inherited the title, and now they believe they can do better than the people that came before them. It's why you see all these articles coming out about, oh, we're removing this, and that's a good thing because the people that came before us, well, they were evil, they were defective, and now we have this ideology that allows us to do better. People see that and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, I'm not supporting this bullshit. Fuck you. And again, people move on to other things, right? But once you find out, you know, no, this is how business is done, right? Multi-billion-dollar companies just buy up companies. They buy up IPs, hold them hostage from the consumer, right? You find that out, and you're like, well, I don't want this to happen to my IP. I don't want this to happen to the things I enjoy, but there's really nothing you can do about it, right? If the only contention of entertainment is either through Microsoft, right, or through Apple, right, through 2 or 3 companies that seem to all think the same way, seem to all want to treat gaming as an art form the same way, right? But they're the only ways you can get your entertainment. Like, no wonder people are jumping ship and being like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I'm peacing out and going to other forms of entertainment. Like, they're well within their right to do so.
And the ones that don't end up being the ones that are the most loved and appreciated. Look at Larian Studios. Their story is almost identical to Digital Extremes. They started off making their own games to limited success. They did work for hire for a while just to be able to keep the doors open. When that industry started to dry up and move away, they went to go make their own game in Divinity Original Sin. They danced with bankruptcy, almost losing the entire studio, but they found an audience that wanted to support it, and now look at them.
Yeah,
Baldur's Gate
exactly.
3 is heralded as one of the greatest games of all time. They blew up.
Not only that, it's the benchmark. Like, they set a new benchmark for success. And now there's things in Baldur's Gate 3 that I don't fucking care for, right? But it's a good game. You know, and benchmark for success is one of those things that companies fail to understand, right? Nowadays, they demand success. Like, they covet your money, they covet your wealth, and if you're not doing it, giving them your money or your wealth, well, you're a very, very bad person, because again, we have this ideology which allows us to do this, which allows us to weaponize the people on Twitter to defend us, and you find out, okay, well, the market rejects this at any turn.
As they deserve to do so. When I look around the industry right now, I see a lot of studios that are making games not because they want to make them, but because they're profit motivated.
Yeah, exactly.
Purely profit motivated. They no longer look at players as anything other than tools for making money, and that's it. Rather than looking at them for what they actually are, which is a means to be able to deliver a higher quality product, use their feedback and their information to be able to earn their money, and then by extension, make your game even that more popular. Because when players are happy, they tend to talk about it a heck of a lot more. And I've also noticed that, games are a form of art, and without soul, there is no art. And in the
Yeah, and I've learned about this even when I was in college from business management. It's like a happy customer may tell one person about the product, but an angry customer will tell 20, 30, 40, 50 people how much the product sucks. And this is what I guess gaming companies have failed to understand, right? Again, they go along the lines of, oh, well, any publicity is good publicity. So, and they don't have faith in the product itself. So what they do is they either they adopt ideology, they try to garner, drama just to get clicks, just to get people motivated and clicking. And when that happens, according to them, oh, well, that's a success. Like, they do not have faith in the product itself selling, right? And again, they view the game no longer as art. They view it as just another product. They view it like just another mass-produced product. And that's how they're trying to treat it. And you find out that, no, most successful, most good games are treated like an experience. And he said having soul in them, well, Dark Souls, from Software, there's a reason why people actively seek Souls-like games and From Software games is because, they're selling an experience, right? And they are allowed to do this. Nowadays, you're just not allowed to do that, right? Nowadays, you have to hire the consultants. You have to hire the diversity hires. You have to do so many things just to cover your ass, but so few things to, actually sell the fucking product. And again, those things cost a lot of money, right? The diversity hire, that doesn't add to the artistic experience. They cost a lot of fucking money, And this is just in art. Like, this is in game companies. Maybe it's fine in other industries, right? But you have the diversity hire. You have the consultant looking at the artist and being like, oh no, we're not supposed to make art this way. We've matured as a company. Therefore, this is bad. Do it again. And this can only happen so many times to where the artist is like, well, I did have faith in this company. I did treat this company, like, a fun company. But now I'm just going to treat it like just any other company and just get any other 9-to-5 company get my paycheck, do what the fuck they want, and it's soul crushing. And I've heard this from several artists on Twitter. Like, yeah, this is how it's done. This, you know, they don't care for artists to actually express themselves. All they care about is checking the boxes, appeasing the HR lady, and you cannot make art under these circumstances. Or you can make art, but it's not going to be what the consumer wants. Like, because then this is another point. They believe they're above the consumer. They believe they know better than you, the person who works a 9 to 5 and makes the purchasing decision to set aside money for entertainment. They're like, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're supposed to set money aside for ideology. And the consumer rejects this. And even if the consumer can't articulate what's happening, even if they don't know what's happening, like, just at a fundamental basis, they reject this.
Case of games, I think a lot of players are starting to wake up and realize they can see it in your trailers, they can see it in your gameplay, they can see it when the soul isn't there. And when they know it's there and they see it's there, they're into that game. But when they don't see it, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of games over the last few years fail.
Well, and you start to think that, okay, is this product supposed to fail? Because, you hear that thing where it's like, oh, well, this had potential. And it's like, maybe that had potential, but nowadays, some things are just meant to fail. Some things are meant, to piss people off. And they cheer the fact that they put in time, money, and effort just to piss off the consumer. Because here's the fact, they hate the IP. They hate the fact that it's popular. They hate doing the job, right? So if you have that 3 degrees of hate, like, it's on, like, hating the consumer is only the next best thing. Like, you see this with Star Wars Acolyte. Like, they clearly hate what they're doing, but they are like, oh, well, it's popular, it's where the money's at, we covet the job, so we're just going to keep doing it despite hate. And what you get is a product that is actively inflammatory. You have a product that is actively there to hate. And again, they're going to adopt an ideology which forces people to defend them, right? Just complete fucking strangers that don't know them, but because they say the words that these ideological individuals want to hear, okay, now they'll just defend it just as a default. But at the end of the day, the IP itself suffers. Like, Star Wars, as an intellectual property, suffers.
Streams started out with great intentions, to be honest with you. But that doesn't mean that they didn't make the same mistakes that many other free-to-play and live service games make time and time again, and that's with its monetization. But the difference is, they learn from their mistakes. I don't think anybody can disagree with this. Recently, over the last few years, both live service and free-to-play games have permeated through every space in the entire gaming industry. Every single company wants their Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Genshin Impact, whatever it might be, and of course they would, because they draw in revenues that would make you wonder why anybody would ever want to make another full-priced game again. But with the introduction of free-to-play live service games, we've seen year over year, month over month, players are losing ground, losing choice, and losing their money. Free-to-play has become synonymous with cutting content and player achievement and putting a price tag on it. While the gameplay itself is free, the model has incentivized developers to paywall everything in the game or put in absurd time restrictions and hurdles for players to be able to overcome just so they can try to earn anything with their own time or their own skill. Studios today are incentivized to actively harm the player experience and lower the quality of the overall product, all in the name of higher profits.
I mean, yeah, they see where the money is, and they're like, okay, well, why wouldn't we do this? Like, it's relatively easy to make a game like this. It's just how you do it, right? Like, many companies want to make the next Fortnite, but no one wants to make a game like Fortnite. They don't want to make the experience that Fortnite was. Now, Fortnite is played by a bunch of kids, and it's fucking cringe. But, everyone wants to copy each other's homework and pray that they scrape together the market, but no one wants to sell an experience, to sell a good game. They want to look at pocketbook. And if your company's too big, if your company is so large that you have the upper management that they'll make money regardless. The middle management is ideologically possessed, and you're forced to have them. Otherwise, you get lawsuits, right? If you have a company like this, I mean, of course, the product itself suffers. Of course, the merit and the artistic expression suffers just as a base.
Digital Extremes was incredibly nervous about getting into free-to-play because they were afraid that they were going to do it wrong, and in fact, they did. At first, they started selling power, and it wasn't the reputation that they wanted to create for themselves.
God,
At the creation of Warframe, you could double the capacity of
I thought, I didn't even know that was I knew it was a thing because I played the game when it first came out and a couple years after, but I did, it's a memory that exited itself from your mind. But now, oh my God, 100% remember that they tried to do this. Yeah, this was a bad fucking decision.
mod or skill tree slots in your Warframes. However, there was no way to be able to earn this in-game, and the only way that you could get it was by paying for it with real money.
Yep.
Early on, before the game's beta release, Digital Extremes saw the players' feedback regarding this issue and removed it and any other perceived pay-for-power microtransactions, vowing for fair monetization to be a core tenet of the studio moving forward. In that move, the other changes that they made, due to their deep involvement in the early foundations of their game's community, they fostered a positive community spirit and gained even more support. In an interview 6 years ago with Danny O'Dwyer of No Clip Documentaries, they mentioned how difficult it was for them to be able to find any marketing or visibility because at the time, nobody wanted to touch free-to-play games. However, the positive community that they had already started to culture, the fact that they had been listening to their community, ended up catching the attention of the late great commentator Total Biscuit, who came to cover the game and catapult its popularity into the mainstream.
God rest his
I think that this is one of the most valuable lessons for Digital Extremes or any company to learn, and it's that good things happen to good developers, especially those who treat their players as well as Digital Extremes and listens to their feedback. Game developers large and small need to recognize that they are providing a product and service to us, not the other way around. The expectation is on them to create a fun, fair, entertaining, and valuable experience in exchange for our money.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Valuable experience in exchange for our money.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing they fail to realize. Like, again, they covet your money. Like, this is where we're at. Like, they believe because, they have the IP, right? They have the thing that's popular, that they covet the money of the consumer, and that's just not it. And then this is why people reject them at any cost, at any place they are. Like, they reject multi-billion-dollar companies. Like, you might have the normies that just accept it. You might have the ideologically possessed individuals on Twitter that defend it, right? But those are the small, vocal minority. Like, the overwhelming majority are just, consumers that they make the sound purchasing decisions, and now they're seeing, oh, hey, why would I pay money for this company that doesn't care about giving me a product, right? That only cares about ideology. Like, why would I put my money towards that and not towards, Eastern entertainment? And it's odd how Eastern entertainment is now giving people what they want. It's odd how gacha games are now giving the players what they want, as opposed to the Blizzards of the world or the Ubisofts of the world. Because Ubisoft used to, right? Blizzard used to. They used to give, the people what they want and give out a good fucking product. Now they don't. Now they covet the money. And again, this is why people want these studios to fail, right? It's like, they have the eternal daddy issues, and they believe, oh, they can all of a sudden do better, and that if you do not give them the money, if you do not pay for them, then you're a bad person, and people are looking at this, and even normies are like, brother, shut the fuck up, you're a multi-billion-dollar company, I don't need to look towards you for moral advice, give me a product, or I move the fuck away.
When I see game developers posting on Reddit talking about how they hate gamers because of YouTube live stream comments, or how a lead Starfield developer makes a Twitter thread saying, funny how disconnected some players are from the realities of game development, and yet they speak with complete authority. I mean, I can guess what it takes to make a Hostess Twinkie, but I don't work in the factory, so what the hell do I know, really? Not a lot. And neither of these opinions that these people have are in the minority of opinions. With what authority do players speak? With their money. They are your paying customers. While players may not know exactly how to voice their concerns, and oftentimes will do it in the wrong way, you still should be listening to them because they are telling you that something is wrong with your game, and at the end of the day, all they want is a better product, which only serves to make you more money in the end. We've seen developers stray from the side of players. However, how many developers have you seen remove a microtransaction from their game because players were using it too much? When Warframe introduced colors for their pet skins, they didn't realize that they had inadvertently created a gambling mechanic where players were trying to search for the rarest skin colors and the combinations that they wanted. DE saw that a player had rolled his pet's color 200 times and their stomach sank. Within a day and a half, they had removed the mechanic from the game and reworked it, without the need for player feedback. The spirit of that...
Yeah, and again, the customer doesn't need to care how it is to be a developer, right? And I guess I'm going to be the asshole to point it out. I don't care how hard the game is to make. Yeah, you're demanding my money. You're demanding my hard-earned cash. I work hard for my money. Right? So if you want my money, you put in a fucking good job and you make a goddamn good product. If you don't want my money, if you want my empathy, right? If you want to have this ideology which covets the empathy, fine. You can have my empathy, whatever, but you're not getting my money. I mean, it sucks that you have to be the asshole to just point this out because, again, you have these empathetic vampires that believe, oh, well, all we really care about is your empathy. We don't care about the product. I'm sorry. I guess this just isn't your line of work because, again, I'm making the purchasing decision to buy into this. I'm taking a risk to put my hard-earned money that could have went towards other things, towards entertainment. And I'll gladly do this if the entertainment I'm giving is worth my fucking money. And the thing with the whole gambling situation is like, yeah, I realized that within playing. I think that was around the time where I took a big hiatus from Warframe because, even I was like, it's fine as it was. But then I kind of went on a break from Warframe.
That can be found throughout the entire game. As of a recent update, now everything in the game, just about everything in the game, is earnable in-game with very few outliers. Warframe uses Platinum as its in-game premium currency.
Yeah, the outlier is you can buy, you can buy premium packs, which you don't really need. I mean, you get the Warframe and the skins, but, I mean, that's whatever. And another one is Regal Aya, which is another pay for goofy currency that they tell you, oh, you don't need this and you shouldn't pay for it, but here's to the people with the fucking massive wallets, go crazy. And there's probably other things, like certain skins you can only buy with money, but the majority you can buy them with plat, which is also a free currency, and it's probably going to get into that. Like, if you grind for, Warframe parts or weapon parts, you can go on Trade Chat and sell them for plat, which is their premium currency.
And it's fully tradable. Players can go out, farm valuable resources, mods, weapons, and Warframe blueprints, and then trade with other players without ever even spending a dime. You would think that this is trapped behind some type of end game progression or something, right? No, you can start doing this within the first 15 to 20 hours of playing the game. I was already trading items with other players and stockpiling currency from the minute that I had started. While players still have the option to buy anything that they want from the game's in-game shop, all of those things, or at least the vast majority of them outside of cosmetics and color palettes, can be earned in-game. So, Mr. YouTuber, that means that Warframe must have the most difficult and high-end equipment behind paywalls or something, right? It has to be insanely difficult to get. No. The pinnacle Warframes and weapons are called primes. You can earn these by cracking relics, and you get relics constantly while you're playing the game. When you go to do these missions to crack the relics, you're playing with 4 players, and all 4 of you can choose to use the exact same relic, which would then increase your chances of being able to get what you wanted, because everybody can choose from everyone else's rewards. Meaning that even if you're in a party that isn't coordinated and you're all running different relics, if you don't get what you want out of yours, you can just get a copy of somebody else's thing if it's more valuable. You can choose to get whatever you want. Every weapon, every frame, companion, and otherwise is at your fingertips. You can earn your way through Warframe without ever even spending a dime, and many players have. There is no time wasting in Warframe. And
I mean, but it does take time. I mean, you have to grind. You have to actively be doing relics, and you have to do the missions that give you relics. But I mean, most missions just give you relics just for doing them. Right? I probably have thousands of relics. Like, you get like hundreds just for completing the star chart, unless you're trying to get specific relics. But, and this is the thing that the First Ascendant did not do, because everyone gets their own reward, right? Like, some people may get the thing, but some people may not. But Warframe fixed that problem with this relic system, and the fact that whatever the boss drops, everybody gets it, right? So if a boss drops one part, everyone in that party gets that one part, and I think that's a better way of doing the grind, because it actually, it incentivizes cohesion as opposed to just getting what you want, then just dipping, right? It's like, okay, well, if I stay, even if I got what I want, I could get something else that I might not have if I stay 2, 3, 4 more rounds with a bunch of, even if it's just a bunch of randos, and get other things. So again, that cohesion is just there as a base. Like, you don't need to jump through hoops just to have that.
And what's even more crazier is that, adding to this absurdity, they show players how not to spend money within their premium shop. If you go to their premium shop and look at any of the items available in it, next to every item, it tells you how to go earn that item in-game rather than spending money. They teach players how not to spend money in their shop. But that doesn't mean that players don't support the game. In fact, they do quite a lot, because by making things so accessible, giving massive discounts on their currency and things like that, being able to just get all the things that you want in the game by playing it, players just want to spend money on the game because they want to support it, because they love the game so much, not because they feel like they need to. Imagine that. Imagine a world in which the players are not spending money on a game because they need to overcome some fabricated barrier that's put in place, and if they spend money, they're going to be able to get through it faster or get through it at all. No, instead, they're spending money because they actually want to support the game. They just are enjoying themselves and want to spend the money. Now, mind you, some of this is definitely driven by convenience, but the vast majority of players just love the game and want to support it. And that's not to say that there aren't areas worth criticizing. I'm still not a fan of the fact of them having 12 to 72 hour crafting timers on weapons and warframes. That's just, it's just too much. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just too much. And
that, and you have to do the star chart, which is like hundreds of just random blippy missions on the map. Like, it's like a map of all the planets of the Sol system, and there's probably like 10, 15, 20 missions per planet, right? And the quests are good, but again, they're also locked behind star charts, right? Certain, if you want to get certain warframes, those are locked behind the star chart. Like the star chart is the major thing that most people see, and they get overwhelmed, and then they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'd say that's the biggest problem, and it's a problem. Not that I'm not saying it should go away, right? Because again, it's that delayed gratification. It's just I don't know. You better have someone to suffer through it with you. Like I had a couple people to suffer through the star chart with me, and this was before you had the type of warframes that could just blow everything up. Like I guess you had Saren and you had your mesas, right? And you had, the Ember before they fucking changed her because a bunch of people who played only the star chart goddamn complained, right? But and you didn't have the mods, the in-game mods that were required. So you were literally trudging along and it's like, oh god, I just please get this over with. But that is also kind of part of the charm, because once you get that over with, it's like this air of relief enters your body, and you're like, oh god, yes, I'm done. The nightmare's finally over.
And also, there's a big limitation on the amount of weapon and Warframe slots, inventory slots that are available early on for players. That's something that in general just needs to get fixed. But
I mean, you can buy the slots with plat, but yeah, you get like 2 slots every mastery rank, and the mastery rank in Warframe is literally the same way as it is in like the first Descendant, right? You can get them with plat, but I don't know. Again, I stopped getting rid of my regular Warframes after I got rid of Titania for Titania Prime. So now I'm keeping my regular Warframes and my primed Warframes. And I don't know, I might even grind out the regular ones just to, I don't know, fucking have them. Who knows?
the thing is that the longer you play the game, the less those things become an issue, because you have so many other things that you're working on, leveling up, playing as, farming for, while all these other things are building in the background, that you really don't even notice it all that much. And while there's room for improvement, this is largely the most ethical live service game I've ever seen monetized. And I don't think any other game wants to try to compete on those terms. They definitely don't want to compete on their content. Warframe's for...
Yeah, that companies want normies, right? They want people that just shut the fuck up and consume. You know, they don't want, you know, conscientious consumers, people who like gaming as an art form. You know, they just want people that... They want effectively pay pigs. People that give them money and they spit on. You know? They don't want, you know... people who actually care about the IPs, you know, that cares about gaming as an art, because what they see is, oh, you're bastardizing this art form, right? You're claiming to be inclusive, but only including the small, fringe, radical, ideologically possessed minority of people that that normal people avoid, you know?
First turning point came when the game released on Steam, which marked a critical success and provided the studio with the necessary resources to be able to continue to support and develop the game. Unlike competitive shooters that can maintain an audience with minimal updates, Warframe faced the challenge of sustaining interest in a PvE-centric game, which is far more difficult. To overcome this, Digital Extremes heavily leaned on the experienced development team who had weathered the storm through the toughest times and possessed the deep institutional knowledge that was necessary to make the game successful. If it wasn't for the fact that they held on to their employees when the game and the studio was facing its closure, they likely would have never been able to make the game the success that it is today. In the years following the game's release on Steam, Warframe saw a rapid expansion in content. The studio introduced clans, player hubs, a plethora of new weapons and warframes, and diverse gameplay elements like open world areas, vehicles, and space combat. But the most significant shift in the game's identity came with the release of The Second Dream, a cinematic quest that redefined Warframe as a game. This quest introduced fully voice-acted, high-quality cinematic experiences with intricate writing and storytelling that elevated the game from a compelling free-to-play title to a truly exceptional experience. No longer was Warframe just a free-to-play game, it was just a great game that happened to be free-to-play. Digital Extremes continued to push boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, DE, they took risks. And the risk bit them in the ass many times, but I think for the most part it paid off. And this is the problem. You know, game companies just do not take risks. You know, they buy up IPs. You know, they hire people who are probably some of the most risky, but because they have an ideology, they have this shield that they can throw up, you know, whenever any criticism. And you find that it's weird, right? When the consumer shits on the company, it's harassment, it's a couple of trolls online, it's a targeted campaign, it's Gamergate all over again. But when the company shits on the consumer, oh, they're sticking it to the racist, the sexist, the this is, the that is. It's like someone has to have some level of, you know, criticism that is 100% applicable. But no, they're all either trolls or racist or sexist. Like, this is how it's been done, and the strat's been nerfed, but, you know, it's odd to tell your kids, yeah, this literally used to happen. Like, before then, it was satanic, demonic, this, that, and the other, but now it's racist, sexist, because we only have one good strategy, and it's that strategy because it legitimately works for a little while until that it gets nerfed. And now the people that do the spurging, is like they can continue to spurg around the idiots that they surround themselves with. But with normal people, they're like, okay, you sit over there, right? And the adults will be over here and actually have a conversation. And when you're done spurging out, you can join us.
With subsequent updates, including the new war, Whispers in the Walls, and the upcoming major update, Warframe 1999. These expansions demonstrate a level of writing, character development, and cinematic quality that's typically associated with AAA blockbuster titles and reflect nothing of what we've seen in typical free-to-play games. The studio's ambition to deliver high-end content remained evident with every release, further increasing the game's reputation among players both new and old. That's what's made the Warframe that we have today. One of the systems I was the most shocked by was at one point I unlocked what I can best describe as Sea of Thieves in space. You get a Railjack, a fully customizable ship that you can upgrade. It has multiple weapons that are controlled by other players in co-op. You hire NPCs to manage the ship. You fight other ships. You can board other ships, steal other ships, and raid enemy bases. While the feature didn't land well on release and it had its issues, what is available today is an absolute blast to play, and it feels like it's completely native to the game and like it could have been there from the start. In the landscape of live service and free-to-play games, many developers opt for the safe approach, focusing on incremental updates and minor changes rather than undertaking any significant overhaul. This safe strategy often results in steady, gradual improvements, but most major additions and transformative changes end up being locked behind paid expansions, premium content, and microtransactions. Typically for...
Yeah, because when the companies take the risk, they demand the money. You know, they're like, oh, well, $30 please for content that was probably done the minute the base game came out, but we're taking the risk, we need the money to justify it. You know, you find out when companies take risks, they demand an arm and a fucking leg from you, the consumer, right? They don't just write it off as risk. And that's why most companies, well, don't take risk, right? And they just buy up IPs and demand the money. But when they do, when there's a, extra content, they do what, say, Star Wars Outlaws does, and they lock it behind a 120 something, 150 something dollar pack.
Free-to-play games and live service games will introduce minor tweaks, seasonal updates, and limited time offers to try to keep players engaged. But Warframe does the exact same thing. They aren't strangers to making big splashes with major updates, and all the while, they're not charging the players a dime. Other games with standard offerings can sometimes refresh the experience and provide new incentives to be able to log in, but they rarely bring the wide-sweeping changes that might significantly alter the gameplay or narrative, making the game overall feel more stale. I'll give kudos to games like Fortnite, who often radically change their map, put in new modes, and give more ways for players to be able to express themselves in games, like even creating their own games within Fortnite. However, the vast majority of games don't do this, and in combination with that lack of risk, they often let go of the developers that got them to where they are in the first place, ignoring the players that got them to where they are in the first place.
Yeah, and you've seen this with, like, Bungie and 343, right? When 343 took over Halo, right? They wanted to completely expunge the original voice actors of, say, Chief, Cortana, and the Arbiter. They wanted to get rid of them, just snuff them out overnight. They wanted to expunge all the developers that came before them that created that monumental game that was Halo, because again, they believe they can do better. It's their product, and they act like a child that just got a toy from someone else and are allowed to have it. They're like, no, it is mine. It is mine now, right? And ideology is just one of those things they use as this tool. But again, it's like, and bear with me, they're like the cargo cults of the gaming industry. Now, the cargo cults were like tribes of Pacific Islanders who, in like World War II, like you had the Americans land on these islands and make bases here, and they intermingled with some of the Pacific Islanders, and the Pacific Islanders would see like, planes that would drop food, drop clothing, and when they seen this, they literally believe like these are like gods giving gifts to us, so we have to appease them. And if you look up the cargo cults, you see them, they still make like the planes out of sticks. They still wear the denim jeans and all that, because they're trying to replicate what did happen, but it's just not what they think. And that's what most companies and most developers and it's what most companies believe they're doing with the IPs. Like, they know the magic is there. They believe they can do something with it. They just don't know how to. And in many cases, they're just not allowed, because they hire the consultants, they hire the consultancy groups, they hire the diversity officers, and they're like the block between actually having artistic expression and just another fucking product, right?
As a result, they hollow out their experience, leaving them with nowhere to go. There's too much focus on monetization, and it's leading to a disparity between the expectations of the player and the financial outlook of the developer. Today, we have developers that are understaffed, underpaid, under a lot of pressure, under-delivering to their audience, while for some odd reason the company is still expecting more money.
Yep.
You have CEOs that are out there projecting growing profit without investing in growing content. And their expectation is, because you're playing, then you must be paying, and I'm sick of it. Look, just recently I saw with Apex Legends, the big drama that cropped up around it, where basically, long story short, developer goes in and makes it where you can no longer earn the next battle pass by completing the last battle pass, where previously you were able to. And they made these changes, gaslighting the players, saying that it's because we're trying to deliver you guys a more valuable experience. We're doing it because we're trying to grow the game, and we're giving you guys more value. That's really what it is. when anybody with any base level of intelligence can see how insulting it is to say something like that when it's so transparently not that. And they're not the only developer doing things like that. You see it across the board. So many developers that are making minor changes to their game, but all of their focus is on their monetization. How else they can shift and move things around to make it where they can make more money and you get less out of playing the game.
Yeah, and they're trying to normalize this. They're like, no, this is the way it should be. This is the way it hasn't always been this, but it's how it is now. It's what many companies are doing nowadays. That and selling, you know, $100 and something versions of the game, right? And they don't really add much value. They just take things that are already in the game and just lock it behind a paywall. Yeah, you see that's exactly what they're doing.
And in that, the only thing that you're serving to do is make an audience that isn't loyal to you, that is just waiting, frothing at the mouth at the chance to be able to jump onto the next game and get as far away from you as they possibly can. Sure, they're playing your game right now. Sure, it's popular right now, but that's because they don't really have another option, and there's nothing else right now that's that hot. So once there is something that hot that comes out, you're done. That's it.
Yeah.
Players are a valuable resource, and you need to value them. They provide you with everything that you need to be successful, both creatively and financially. And if you use them the appropriate way, you can be huge, you can be massive. And while that's not the truth for every single game, because every single game is different, they have a different audience, they have a different use case. Not everybody plays the same kind of games. When you value them, they keep you afloat. They help you grow. And in the case of Digital Extremes and Warframe, I don't think that there's another developer that's out there that appreciates their audience the same way or does the same things that Digital Extremes does with their audience.
Well, they do. They're just not. They do it differently, right? Again, there's many indie games that think this way, but they're just small, insignificant. They don't really get the traction I believe they should have. You know? I mean, many people, like, it has never been so easy to make a game nowadays than it is now. Like, it's never been so easy to make a game. But, yeah, there's still the risk that's there. And there's still passion projects, right? Like, I believe Helldivers was one of these things, but what happened with Helldivers is Sony tried to fuck with them, right? The community managers fucked with the game, and even after all that, the players still, you know, trudged along and held on, but, you know, it lowered the shelf life of the game. But to be honest, you know, I believe there is passion in gaming. It's just you need to go anywhere but AAA. Hey, I even believe the people that make Nikkei Goddess of Victory have passion in their game, right? And that's a fucking gacha game. Like, I believe they have passion. Why? Because they have good story, right? They want to tell a story. But, you know, you have to sort of you have to take the risk of looking for these things. But again, most people work for a living and they can't do that. You know, most people, you know, they just want to, after their 12 hours a day of work, they want to just sit and play a game, and that's fine. But, I mean, and again, even the people like that are moving away from AAA game companies because, again, they're even being conscientious. They're like, okay, why would I spend my hard-earned cash on a company that just wants me to be the pay piggy, right? But I do believe there are developers, there are people who want to tell a story. They just don't know where to go or where to turn. Or if you look at all the red tape behind just simply making a video game, right? Some people are just like, well, there's really not it's not worth it. And again, if you're not connected, if you don't speak the ideological speech, if you do not hire consultants like what's happening with, you know, Black Myth Wukong, people will boycott your game, people try to get it shut down, People will come between you and the consumers to sell your fucking product. And people see this and it's like, well, like they get the false imitation that making games is actually more difficult. And because of all these things, yeah, making a video game is more difficult. Even with all the technology, right? It's easier than it is now with the technology we have, but it's difficult because you have the ideologically possessed individuals, which will come between the consumer and you and try to get it shut down, right? And it's easy to be like, yeah, fuck off. And if you're a foreign developer, you can tell them to fuck off. But if you're here in America, right, this is one of those things you have to contend with.
Except for baby Larian Studios. Why did you guys have to go and create a community YouTube channel? And even more so, why am I not in it? I get it, like Duality and Co-Carnage are really cool, but like I made a lot of videos on Baldur's Gate. Come on, man. Initially, I had wondered how Warframe was able to hold on to such a consistent player base for so long. Regardless of good or bad updates, new games, or financial declines, their core audience has stayed rock solid for over a decade now, and in and of itself, that is a feat that very few games have accomplished. It wasn't until I started streaming my experience over on Twitch, playing the game for the very first time, that I was exposed to the game's community, and in that, I noticed how positive they are. An eerily similar experience I had with Final Fantasy XIV, but altogether completely different. Many players have been playing the game since alpha. They've unlocked everything in the game, effectively beaten the game, logging thousands of hours. However, they are still logging in regularly, even daily. They are out there guiding new players and doing things that they've done thousands of times because they love the game that much. And I was curious where that comes from. While sure, the game has regular updates, new content, new weapons, and new warframes, I couldn't see how Warframe could become somebody's daily driver until I saw how Digital Extremes engages with their community. Oftentimes, developers lay silent between content releases and major updates. They put their head in the sand, they let a couple people go out and respond or repost on Twitter, and only come out of hibernation to make promotional content to drive up interest around the next big update or major change. In that time of silence, I think it makes it feel like updates are further apart than they actually are. Players aren't engaged, and when they aren't engaged, they lose interest, and DE makes it really hard for you not to feel engaged as they support their community like they're content creators rather than game developers. Every single week, they go live on YouTube and Twitch to do something they call a dev short, where Steve Sinclair, the CEO of Digital Extremes, together with Rebecca Ford, the once community manager and now creative director of Warframe, just talk to the players for 15 minutes. They answer questions, they tell them about things that they're working on, they joke around. They do this every week.
Yeah,
what other game studios give that kind?
They do this because they have faith in the product. Like they believe, yes, we have faith that the game itself adds to the creative aspect of gaming, and we have faith that the players and the community will keep us afloat. Right? That's why they do this. They care for the game. You know, the thing that, you know, most companies don't. Like, they care to make money off the game, right? But no, they care for Warframe. It is their passion project. It is their baby. And they do care.
Kind of transparency to the players. What other game companies are that grounded to make sure that their CEO of all people is constantly in contact with the players? None. And that's not all they do. Every Wednesday and Thursday, they host Prime Time over on Twitch, and each of them have their own separate streams for English and Spanish, where the developers and community managers come out to play the game with the players. Have you ever heard of anything more absurd than that? Developers actually playing their game and playing their game with players.
See, that's the thing. Most developers, like not even most CEOs, just suck up dividends. Like they treat it like, oh, it's just any other company. But no, that they actually have an interest in the thing that they created, right? And in hindsight, this shouldn't be weird. Like, indie developers care and do this, or at least the ones that, you know, we knew, or even back then when they were just a couple dudes in their mom's basement, a couple of smelly programmers in their mom's basement, like they cared. But it's just odd to know that, yeah, the CEO, the developers actually play the fucking game, they play the product that they create, and they enjoy it.
Audience up to 250,000 viewers, giving away skins, Twitch drops, different items, premium currencies. They tell stories, they play trivia games with chat, and they show off different community art submissions. They are more involved with their community than I think any developer ever has been.
Yeah, I think there's 2 Warframes that were 100% made by the community. One of them is Nova Prime, and the other one is Varuna, I believe. Is it Varuna? Yeah, and they got the concept art from artists of the community, right? And, you know, they made tweaks and implementation of, like, the abilities and all that. But, yeah, like, they go to the community for the ideas. And, if I'm not mistaken, they actually do pay them for their art and for their commission, because they know that that is their product, right? Their product is the artistic experience of Warframe. You know, not just the game itself, and the game itself is good, but it is the artistic expression of the game.
And the fruits of their labor shine so brightly. It shines in how positive their community is, how engaged they are, how well the game is developed and supported, how solid the monetization is. It's why they are allowed to take the risks with the games like they have, and even with future games in development like Soulframe. The players know that they're appreciated. They know that the developer is trying to achieve something, and they can tell that they truly love what they are doing. They can clearly see that these developers love their game, and it shows. Digital Extremes recognizes what many developers have slowly started to drift away from, that players are a part of your game, and without them, your game wouldn't be what it is.
Well, and again, the developers can't help this, right? Because they're just doing the code. It's the companies, it's the diversity hires, it's the consultants, right? These are the things that step between the developer and their passion and tell them what they can make and what they cannot make, right? And the developer's just not allowed to freely express what they want. Like, I even looked at some of the old art for Blizzard, and I'm like, that is like an art form that's dying. Like, for the old, like, the Draenei, you know, the artist that made them, like, he would not be allowed to make characters like that nowadays, because the consultants, you know, these consultancy groups will come between him and how he wants to express the art, and they'll do this and it's not for logical reasons, right? Because it's not like the consumer wouldn't want this. It's for ideological reasons. It's because they have an ideology, right? They got their gender studies degree, and because of that, and because they all learn from the same textbook, they're told this is not allowed. The way these characters are not drawn is not allowed nowadays. We've matured we've matured as the company, right? You know, we're reaching a wider audience. This is not how you're allowed to draw them anymore, right? That's the problem. And again, companies give lip service to this because they're just trying not to get sued, and the CEOs are going to get paid one way or the other. And what you get is the bastardization of gaming as an art, as an artistic expression, and you just get corporate drones. And this seems to be what people want. The same people that say art is subjective, they want this because it's their ideology pushing for it, and they're forced to push for it as well. They want this to happen, and it boggles my fucking mind. I mean, art should be allowed to offend, right? Art should be allowed to push boundaries, to make you feel disgusted, to make you feel angry, to make you feel fucking mad. Like, if art's not allowed to do that, well then, you can't fall behind the artist's subjective argument because it is objectively being suppressed, and you're okay with this, apparently. Now, I'm not saying, I want offense, or I'm not saying I want things that are grossly offensive. I'm just saying who decides what is offensive, what should be, and what shouldn't be portrayed in art. And again, we know that now it's, the sweet babies of the world. It's the consultancy groups that will place themselves, it's the ideologically possessed individuals that will place themselves between the company and their art and the consumer. And how much of this is what the consumer wants and how much of it is enforced is what I'm asking.
And in fact, for Warframe, that's literally true. In the early days of Warframe, movement is exactly what you would have expected the game to be. Just a over-the-shoulder, third-person shooter. It had sliding and running, but overall the movement was slow.
Yeah,
Players discovered an exploit where they called it Zoran coptering, where they could essentially fly across maps, sling themselves across maps, and complete missions in a fraction of the time. Instead of removing this, instead of standing against the players and changing something that the players were enjoying or doing, they recognized that the players were exploiting this because they were trying to avoid something that was actively ruining their experience. So Digital Extremes revamped the entire movement system for the game, reworking it from the ground up to be one of the most fluid movement systems in all of gaming.
Bullet jumping.
This video took a lot longer to record than I thought it would. It's already dark outside. You might actually end up hearing my cat chattering with another cat that shows up outside. This little orange cat. They just kind of talk through the window. It's adorable. Over the last few years, I've noticed a conversation that's popped up between game developers and game journalists, and they're talking about how cold and unfeeling and how unsympathetic gamers are towards the plight of the industry, how some of these companies are failing, how games are failing, how companies are going out of business, how people are losing their jobs, and they are absolutely right. Because at the end of the day, we are consumers, we're buying games, and if you do not make a game that we want to play and it wasn't worth our money and we wasted it on your game and you go out of business as a result of that,
good.
That's on you.
Yeah.
You got what you got coming to you. But
and again, this is a sentiment that companies have spent time, money, and effort trying to foster. Like, I need you to understand this. They spent time, money, and effort to erode the consumer, to erode the consumer consciousness in gaming as art. Because they believe they know better than the people that put food on their table, right? They spent time, money, and effort into having this done. Instead of spending time, money, and effort making a good fucking game. Like, this is what Ubisoft's doing. They want to sell ideology instead of sell a game. And then when, in the case of Assassin's Creed Shadow, the fucking Japanese politicians are now looking at the game and putting it under scrutiny for historical inaccuracies because they claim, oh no, this is a historical game. Like, yeah, this is what happens. Like, Ubisoft believes they know better about Japanese history than the fucking Japanese. This is the problem. And they have an ideology which forces you to defend them. You are forced to defend this. Right? This is the problem. And then when the game eventually gets goes under, when the game eventually fails, people are like that. Now that everyone knows it's going to, people are like, good, get stuffed, idiot. Because this is the sentiment that they spent effort to do. Like, they spent effort to piss you off as the consumer. And their ideology demands that they act this way. They demand they impose the daddy issues instead of making a good fucking product, which is the point, right? The point of Ubisoft is to make a good game and to take my money for a good game. But somewhere along the lines, they've decided, no, we don't want to do this anymore, right? The point, the point of Ubisoft is to make games, right? It's that simple for a reason. Anyone that tries to complicate that is trying to shove ideology down your throat. But the point of Ubisoft isn't to shove ideology. The point is to make a game. And it boggles my mind people disagree with this. They're like, no, we're on this moral crusade against things we don't like, right? Against you, and we demand your money to fight against you, the consumer. It's like, now get fucked, bitch. Fucking pussy, bitch.
To be like that. And I think the reason why is because and this is something that's just kind of evolved over time, is that many of the companies that are out there right now, some of the biggest companies that are out there right now, came from humble beginnings, no different than Larian Studios or Digital Extremes or anyone else that's out there. But when they were smaller, they felt like they were one of us, because they were one of us.
Yeah, they were just
players that were
dudes
making
in their
games
mom's
because they
basement.
wanted to make cool games for them to play and for other people to play. But as time went on and they got bigger and they made more money and they started selling out and literally selling out to other companies, what ended up happening is that conversation changed. That interaction that we used to have, that relationship that we used to have with the developers, that parasocial-like relationship that we had, started to disappear because they started talking to us through a veil of money. It was always apology letters and tweets that are just trying to manipulate the truth more than anything else. It's all gaslighting. You're not trying to help us. You're not trying to do anything for us. You're just trying to make money. And to be honest with you, it's cowardice. It's so disgusting. Like, if you just want to make money, go make money, dog. Say you're doing it for it.
Yeah, and I have no problem with them just wanting to make money. I mean, if you're a multi-billion-dollar company, right, you know, you're sort of forced into that position. But what pisses people off is, you know, they used to make good art. Like, they used to make good games. But now they are physically incapable of doing it. They cannot make a good product because they hamper themselves. They don't want to take risks. They just want to buy up IPs, and they believe, oh, because we have these IPs, we don't need to take the risk, right? You know, this is why, you know, we are where we're at. You know, again, I don't care about making money. And again, it's also because the people that existed in these companies way back when aren't there anymore, right? They've been filtered out, you know, by the diversity hires, either because the company just didn't want them because, you know, someone's been working there for 20, 30 fucking years. They're more expensive than someone working for 3, 4, 5 years. So they do everything in their power to siphon them out, right? And they also hire ideologically possessed individuals, which makes the siphoning process a lot easier, right? I'd say you make a bad tweet 10 years ago, well, now that can be used to get you fired. You know, say you say one thing off the cuff like 20 years ago or back when you were an edgy kid, again, that can get you fired today. And again, people defend this. They're like, yes, this is the way things should be. And because of that, it's where we're at now with games, that there is just no soul, right? There's no soul, there's no creativity, there's no nothing. It's just a product to be fleeced on the market just to compete. And it's like, but it's like, who are you competing with? Like, you're not making games for gamers. And I kind of think they're making games for the journalists. That's why most games are fucking easy nowadays, right? Most games aren't artistically as expressive as they used to be. You know, most games, they actively add things that the consumer want, like the new Silent Hill remake, which adds a fucking ugly ass character. And again, and this is a remake, right? So what people ask is for the character to at least look the same as they used to, but no, they've completely beat a character with the ugly stick, and it's because these consultants are like, yes, this is the way it should be. And it's why most remakes are becoming this. And it's even why they're being remakes. Like, you can make an entirely new game, but they want to just sell it off the premise that it's Silent Hill. And many games are doing. The mini games are at this situation where the company is just hoarding the IP and they're just making remake after remake after remake and nothing new.
Almost have more respect for a company that just laid their nuts out on the table and said, we're doing it because we want your money.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to paint it these colorful words to try to make it feel like they're our friends and really this is all just for you guys. That's not what it is.
I know Creative Assembly was fucking terrible with this, with their creator program with Total War Warhammer, right? Like, the gaslighting you've seen from them was just, and it was between them and Total War Warhammer YouTubers, you know, the people that sold the product, right? They do this whole gaslighting tactic, and again, people know it when they see it. Again, gaslighting is the tool of the abuser, right? They are abusing these people, and they're like, oh no, well, you can't say that. That's very inflammatory. It's like, bitch, shut the fuck up. You're a company. You want my money. You either make a good product or you get fucking bent. And most of it is people are just not allowed to express what they want to say, right? If you have the system where people are just not allowed to express their grievances or express their anger, they're just going to do it in different ways, right? You know, they're going to actively spend their money on things that are counter to your ideas, you know, because people can't express it the way you want them to, right? Just because they can't be nice and be all hoity-toity about it. Well, again, people are just going to express it in other ways, and in this case, the other ways is spending money on other products, putting their money towards other things that actually vie for their money and their time, right? And then this is what you see people doing.
I think there's a lot to learn from a company like Digital Extremes, especially in the way that they stay connected with their audience. That level of connection brings in insane levels of endearment where the people that are playing the game just genuinely love the work that the people are doing because they like the people too. They like both things at the exact same time, and that's an awesome thing to have. My cat is freaking out.
God.
That's an awesome thing to have because players at the end of the day do want to be appreciated.
Yeah.
We want to be heard. And the more we're heard and the more we're appreciated and the more that the game is actually worth our time and money, the more likely we are to continue to invest in that game and invest in future things that you do. However, the vast majority of the industry is really doing nothing other than creating unloyal fan bases. Sure, your game might be doing okay now, but the minute that somebody else comes by, like Digital Extremes or something like that, that does the same things that they do, or better, your audience is gone. And I think there's a lot to learn from this. I really do. That's the whole reason I make these wake-up call videos in the first place, is because I think there is a lot to learn from some of the best studios that are on the market, some of the best games that are on the market. And there's a ton of them. There is. And I plan on doing a ton of these videos because they're a lighthouse, an opportunity for those who have drifted too far away to finally see the light, come back to land, touch grass, and find out what players like, what players really want, and how to talk to players again. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching it this long. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. If you like the video and want more people to see it, throw a like on the video. Follow me on Twitch if you guys want to see me play Warframe or other games and talk about video game news and all that good stuff. Outside of that, I'm going to take off. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends, and I will see you next time.
Yeah, again, people need to understand why this is happening, right? It's happening because the company wants to bypass the consumer altogether. You know, they want investor money, they want ESG, right? If they can make money without needing you to do it, you, the consumer, they will. And they will actively work towards this. And it's what the ESG even is, right? It's investor firms that can give them anywhere up to trillions of dollars. And again, companies see this and they're like, "Holy shit! Let's get this ESG money. Let's get this bag and forego the consumer." Well, you don't have to do that, but again, they see big bucks on the screen and big wealth on the horizon, and they're like, "No, we need to go towards this in any way, shape, or form at all possible." And if you get that, again, what you get are companies like Ubisoft that are garbage, or like EA. You know, it's what you get from this idea. Yeah, it's a good video. You know, my video's probably like an hour or something long because I need to fully express how long. Yeah, an hour 30 something minutes. Holy shit! But anyway, it's been real and it's been fun. Peace.